Okay, here we go. Our Serena cut. I'll be doing long forward graduation here. So I'll start off on the right side with a long curved section that incorporates her natural parting. I'll comb this hair forward, I'll elevate, and I'll cut in my guideline. Now, this point of elevation and the angle that you cut is really important because it determines the overall length and degree of movement, because we'll get the movement from the angle that we cut throughout the entire haircut. So put a lot of consideration into your overall intent when cutting in this guideline. Okay, so our second section, again, we're working with gigantic curved sections that start from the parting all the way to the right side. Now, make sure again that as you cut this technique, I'm gradually increasing the elevation with each section. And notice how this section is quite large, so I'll have to break it down into smaller, more manageable sections. And also be careful around the hairline. If you find that the density around the hairline varies, you may have to adapt your cutting technique just to address these small, minute details more accurately. So again, increasing elevation and over-directing forward. Now this elevation will give us softness once the hair falls. Again, next section, standing in front of what I'm cutting, because my body position here will assist me with my over direction. Remember, with this technique works, I'm elevating each section slightly higher. Now the amount of elevation depends on the overall effect that you want and also the length. So this time around, I'm not going in and elevating each section too high. Like that means the first, second, and third, each section, the deviation from elevation isn't that profound, because I want to keep this shape from going too soft. This elevation will give me softness, but if I go in too soft, it'll start flipping once it hits natural fall. So working in small, manageable areas, so I'll break this section into probably 2 or 3 smaller sections. Make sure that you're combing the hair super clean from your roots all the way to your guideline. If there are any snags in the hair that you comb, those snags will indicate longer lengths after you cut. So if you don't comb the hair properly, it doesn't matter how clean of a guideline you see in between your fingers after you cut it. If you go back and comb out that same section perfectly, you will get longer lengths that exceed your guideline. So just be very aware of this. Increasing elevation with each section. My fingers, elbows, shears, they're all parallel. When I have my body fit the shape that I intend to cut, I have so much more control. For example, if I were to cut this shape and I were to drop my elbow, by dropping my elbow, I'll give my fingers a natural tendency to flip the angle, and that's not the angle that I intend to cut. So again, at the crown area, Still over directing forward, increasing elevation slightly. Now this technique I can cut on the inside of my fingers, on the outside of my fingers. It depends on what point of the head that I'm working on. So I find with such long lengths, this portion of the haircut, standing behind the head, I have a greater amount of control. So now for the opposite side, through the left side, I have to cut in the exact same angle, the exact same elevation. So as I cut in this guideline, I'll go back and I'll check for symmetry and balance between my fingers, because I need to make sure my guideline is nailed. So again, fingers, elbows, shears, parallel. Just going back, refining this line. I'm just like chipping off dust here. The cleaner my line is here, the greater it can assist me with each progressive section. So if my first section had a bunch of little problems on it, technically cutting like every section after those small problems will increase in size by 100% if the sections are the same size. So I'd rather take my time and make sure my guideline's super clean before I progress. Okay, standing in front of while I'm cutting. Remember, with each section, we'll increase the elevation just slightly. And that'll like counteract any like super heaviness or like any type of rigid feeling when the hair falls naturally. And again, we're working with over direction forward, and we're increasing our elevation. And as I approach the side of the haircut, my feet are planted basically at the same spot. I don't like jumping around too much because it diminishes my natural ability to over direct the hair to my center of balance. If I'm standing at the same point, my over direction will be much more consistent. And keep in mind that when you're working with a gigantic section, I personally prefer to go in and just work it piece by piece. So I'll break this section probably into 3 or 4 smaller, more manageable portions. So that way I can keep my stroke count under control. So now I'll take the next section and I comb it super clean from roots to my guideline, still standing at the same point. I'm increasing my elevation just slightly. And again, my feet haven't moved. If I need to reach to the back, I can lean forward. So that way my feet are planted. I'm standing my ground throughout this entire section. When I cut long hair, I like to go and do some damage control first. I like to look at where my challenges will be. So one, every millimeter that you comb that hair away from the scalp, your margin of error will increase, because when the hair is wet, it's heavier. So gravity will have more power over not pulling those hairs down, so you're not combing the hair super clean. And just don't like have your fingers jump around as you're combing out the hair. I set in my comb, then I have my fingers follow the base of my comb to my guideline. And that way, my fingers naturally might shift a bit, but my comb will never change shape. My comb is a 0 degree line, and it will always be a 0 degree line. So I'd rather use my comb as opposed to using my fingers. Okay, and with these long hairs, I don't always have to go in and cut out an outline, because enough of that one length will come down technically in my 3-dimensional shape. And then once the hair is dry, I can go back and clean it up. Because a lot of times long hair clients, they're terrified of getting their hair cut way too short. So if you start off the haircut standing in front of them, and they can see that, okay, well, he's not cutting off that much length, they're more put at ease throughout the entire portion of the haircut. Okay, now for the blow dry, I have to get the hair super, super silky smooth. Okay, remember, she has tons and tons of hair. So initially I'll go in and I'll use a lot of tension As that hair begins to dry, I lessen down on the tension so I can get like my nice smooth bevel curve in there. If I use too much tension throughout the shape, I won't get that nice bend. So now that the hair is dry, I'll just go back, cross-check my shape, and I'll texturize a bit. Just remove some heaviness. Before I texturize, my intention is to texturize to the point where I have a consistent distribution of the weight that exists near my guideline. So some portions I'll have to texturize more, other portions less. So that's up to me. That's why I really rather not use like thinning scissors for this cut. And to the top again, I'm just like checking off any heavyweights. I'm texturizing the hair to the point where I can comb it comfortably from the roots to the ends. And anticipating like a rule of cutting is like wherever you have two major sections connecting, you get additional weight. So I know I'll get additional weight where my two major sections connect. So with anticipation, I know through this area, I'll have to texturize the hair slightly heavier than the other areas. So just understanding what's coming next and where your heavier areas are, then you can go in and finish the hair off that much more properly. For the fringe, I want to go in and cut a soft, slightly asymmetric fringe that's not too short. And she has that funky cowlick, so longer is safer, and I can always chip it down and remove weight so it'll fall down heavier. And then the next section, I'll just work this guy in, just over direction. And as I cut in this fringe, I'm using elevation so it does fall softer. I don't want it to fall too heavy because the overall feeling of this haircut is quite soft. So I have to ensure that the aesthetic of the fringe fits the overall aesthetic of the cut. So this cut, I'm going for a softer, more feminine aesthetic. So again, my entire technique throughout the fringe is something that will give me a soft end result. Okay, well there we have it, our Serena long cut. Enjoy.